Now, alarmingly, a recent study found that some human brains may contain up to 7 grams of plastic, the equivalent of how much goes into making a small spoon.
Seems extraordinary, doesn't
Isn't
it?
it?
But that's not where the shocking statistics stop. From placental and lung tissue to the liver and the kidneys, plastic appears to be colonising our bodies.
But can we avoid them? And if so, what can we do? With researchers warning that our exposure is increasing, journalist Lucy Siegle is here with the steps we can take to protect ourselves. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is quite scary.
I know. And I think we should just qualify it by saying that there's been a lot of research relatively recently that has come out. And I think all the experts, all the scientists, all the researchers would stress that this is not definitive yet, that the studies need to be bigger and more comprehensive so that we can really pin down what health impact these plastics are having.
And there's basically 2 different types. There's microplastics and nanoplastics.
Yes.
What are these?
OK, so microplastics, so big pieces of plastic. We know that we've got a bit of a plastic waste problem.
Yeah,
so
sure.
80% of all the plastic ever created is still with us in some format. That's the weight of 1 billion elephants in landfill, in the ocean, in soils, and a little bit in us as well. And big plastic breaks down into small plastic. It doesn't evaporate or disappear, but it breaks down. Microplastics are plastics under 5 millimetres, and nanoplastics are a sort of new classification of very tiny pieces under 100 nanometres, which are like tinier than a micron, a human
So
hair.
you have to see it through a microscope.
You do. They're invisible to the naked eye, basically. But we are, as you say, scientists, researchers are finding higher concentrations in the human body than they have done before. And you mentioned the brain study that came out recently, which caused a great deal of excitement, not of the fun variety.
No, of course.
Yes.
How are they getting into our brains and our bodies, then?
It's a really good question. And, you know, the main pathways are through breathing because they're so small that they're carried around in the air and they're so ubiquitous, they are everywhere. And also skin contact and also through the food we eat, which is one of the main routes in. And we've got some foodstuffs here that microplastics have been found in, which people are probably quite surprised by. Things like honey, which seems so pure, salt, beer.
Well, yeah, because it's in a glass jar as well.
I know. And, you know, there was some early research on honey and it found that it was actually the beekeepers' bags that they used to store the honeycomb in, which were plastic, which was transmitting the plastic. But microplastics has also been found in pollen as well. So because it's everywhere, it gets into the bee's carrier and it gets into the product itself.
Right.
And beer? Sorry,
just
asking for a friend.
Yes, it's been detected in beer. Yes, you may have an interest in this, but through the brewing process, it's entering somehow. So there's things that are a bit more mysterious, and then there's things like chewing gum, like mainstream chewing gum, is essentially just plastic. Once you've sucked out the mint, you're left with a sort of plastic. So sometimes we're just putting plastic straight in our systems anyway. This, by the way, is a very clever non-plastic chewing gum. So people are rising to the challenge.
So there are options out there, but you need to be aware that it's happening.
Of course you do.
And what is it doing to us as well? That's the thing. You can say we've got it in our body, but how is it actually affecting our health?
Yes, so it tends to be congregating around different points of the body. So it's been found in lung tissue, it's been found in the gut, it's been found in the liver. And one of the main problems is that it is connected to causing inflammation. And as you know, inflammation is connected to lots of non-communicable diseases. And microplastics have been so far connected to everything from cancer to asthma to diabetes. So it could play a role in lots of different illnesses, but more research is definitely needed for firm conclusions.
There is a lot of tea made and tea bags used in our houses. That's something else we need to be concerned about.
So what I would say is we want to try and minimise our exposure to microplastics. They are everywhere. You can't eradicate them completely. But, you know, how many cups of tea? Well, me too, I drink a lot of tea. And once you put hot water with plastic, that's when you get a surfeit of microplastics. Now, a few years ago, many of the tea bag manufacturers decided it would be great to use more plastic in tea bags, you know, one of those great things. And it would stop things like the tea bag bursting when you're a bit, you know, violent with
vigorous
the old vigorous, exactly. But subsequently, we've realised that releases a lot of microplastics, up to 1.2 billion per millimetre. milliliter. That's what researchers have found. It's incredible. And to be honest, a lot of the big tea bag manufacturers have again risen to the challenge, taken the plastic out, and they are using plant-based cellulose plastics, which are not as bad as the oil-based. And you will now find tea bags that say plastic-free or without plastics or something like that. Or you can use tea leaves if you're a very big tea drinker and you want to eliminate them completely.
Go old school.
Yeah, the ritual of it.
Yes.
What about water? Because everybody drinks water.
I know.
We're all on the go.
Yeah.
And for convenience sake, very easily, you just pick up a plastic bottle.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you want to minimise your exposure to microplastics, drinking bottled water is the worst thing. It's the thing to tackle. There is microplastics have been detected in glass bottles, but not as many. But in plastic bottles, again, we're talking about big numbers, not as big as tea bags, but, 240,000 per milliliter. It's a lot. And it's growing worse for some reason. So a lot of people are switching to the steel sort of bottles that you can fill up from the tap, or fountains where they still have them. And a lot of people are installing filters, water filters at home. You can install them straight into your tap so they intercept the water. Even a plastic water filter is
like
probably
the jugs, you mean?
Yeah, that's probably better.
OK.
Well, there's also ones that you can fit on your tap.
OK.
So you have a drinking tap. You
Yes.
know, you see them in posh kitchens now.
Yeah.
So,
Lucy, if everyone's going to be at home listening to this and going, goodness me, I've got so much plastic in me.
Yes.
Is there anything we can do to sort of get rid of some of the plastic that's already in us?
Yes, if anyone says to you, you can detox plastic out of your system, be very sceptical. But there are some things that researchers suggest. So infrared saunas are very good for reducing it. They're very good, actually, for reducing inflammation and stuff like that anyway. And it just helps your system to work better. So, it obviously stimulates sweating. And then there are other things that researchers are looking into. Probiotics, good probiotics will probably play a part. And eating more fibre, that age-old piece of health advice, because in both cases, they kind of seem to trap microplastics and take them, with them when they're expelled from the system. And it's really about microplastics put pressure on the human body. So we need to have our systems working as well as they can possibly work. So a lot of it's the boring age-old advice. Minimise exposure, eat more fibre.
Yeah, like wooden boards, not plastic.
Yes.
No plastic Tupperware, change to glass.
Yes, and I take my shopping out of plastic as soon as I can and decant it into, things like this, glass jars and stuff like that. And it stores well.
Amazing.
And it's not in plastic.
Some simple change will make a big difference. Lucy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. That was great.